Out here in Washington, just outside of Mount Rainier, and I have no service on my phone. We're testing the WeBoost. Now I have 2 bars. This is enough to make a phone call. The past few thousand miles, we've driven all the way through British Columbia, all the way through the Yukon, and all the way through the Northwest Territories, as north as we could go to Tuktoyaktuk. And I will say, the WeBoost antenna, we've been running it through trees and all sorts of stuff and rattling it all around. The main testing we've been doing is durability, and this thing is holding up great. Have you ever been at your favorite off-grid camp spot and thought, man, I just want some service to make a call real quick? Maybe a quick boost would do.
Can I please get a boost?
Is that working?
No.
Well, I'm here to tell you all you really need is a WeBoost 4GX-OTR signal booster. So let me tell you all about it. So as far as installing the booster, WeBoost makes it very easy. When you open the package, you'll see step 1, 2, 3, I think there's 5 or 6 steps. And they're really easy. Mainly all you do is you have to install and find a spot for your booster. From there, you want to find a spot for your outside antenna and your inside antenna. The main thing to consider in install is that your inside antenna is going to boost anything that's up to 36 inches away. So up to 3 feet away. So that's the main thing, is you want to make sure that your inside antenna is close enough to where you think you're going to have your device most of the time to have it boosted. As far as the outside antenna goes, they give you lots of options. You can make it really long or really short with the extensions. You can add a little spring, which I opted to do because it's on my roof rack and it's going to get slammed back and forth. So I'd rather it be a little springy. Like I said, we've already slammed it through a bunch of trees and it's holding up great. So there's a lot of different ways you can mount this. I've also seen friends of mine like Johnny Walker and Ernesto from Overland the Americas. They have their WeBoost antennas on little mounts where they can flip them up and down to keep them away from brush and things.
WeBoost antenna. It's mounted on a rhino rack. Adjustable mounts. Just pull.
Oh, cool, man.
Have it mounted so it's in between the bars on the Prinsu rack and more low-key. At the tops of mountains and everything, or back in the woods. I have a WeBoost
4GX-OTR or something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice, man.
So far I've tested it out. I've had 2 bars of 4G at the minimum everywhere I've been.
I think the last big thing to consider when you're installing the WeBoost is power. They made that very convenient to put a switch on the cigarette lighter. I have to decide, do I want to power it by my camper battery or by my truck battery? The camper battery is always on, the truck not always on, obviously. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is having everything in the cab off of a port that's always on, whether the truck's on or not. Now we're actually in the Yukon in Canada. So one thing I will mention right away about the WeBoost is that you can either get a Canadian version or a US version. The thing that makes them different is the Canadian version boosts Canadian cell towers and the US version boosts US cell towers. So with that said, it hasn't seemed to do that much for us in Canada because of course we have the US version. The thing that we've been doing the past few thousand miles, we've driven all the way through British Columbia, all the way through the Yukon, and all the way through the Northwest Territories, as north as we could go to Tuktoyaktuk. And I will say, the WeBoost antenna, we've been running it through trees and all sorts of stuff and rattling it all around. The main testing we've been doing is durability, and this thing is holding up great. I will say I did have a great experience with it in Washington where I didn't have service and it gave me service like you saw in the beginning of the video. So let's go back to Washington real quick so I can explain to you a little bit more in depth how it worked there. So we're out here in Washington just outside of Mount Rainier, and I have no service on my phone. We're testing the WeBoost. You can see that I have no service there. Got a X through it. So we've got the WeBoost set up over here. I haven't fully wired and mounted everything in yet because I don't know exactly where I want to put everything. Because I want to try to boost the front, the cab here, and the camper. So I think I'm gonna put the inside antenna like in the middle of both. But anyways, we're coming up to this, and I just showed you I had nothing. Now I have 2 bars. Going down to 1 bar a little bit, but this is enough to make a phone call. So far it's working great. The WeBoost is supposed to add 2 to 3 bars to your service. It's not necessarily supposed to give you service when you don't have service. I've heard people say that it does though, and well, I just kind of proved that. So there we are with our 2 bars again. Well, 1 bar down to 2 bars, but again, it went from a strikeout of no service, no calls, nothing, to now let's try to make a call here. We'll call Ashley, she's here with us, so. But look, the call goes through on my end,
Call has been forwarded to an automatic voice
and I
message.
get her message.
4252.
Anyways, awesome. WeBoost is working. I love it. It's holding up. We whipped it through a bunch of trees and brush. So I have my AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot here as well. My Netgear hotspot, I should say, through AT&T. And I figured I would see if it boosts the signal as well. Oh my gosh. I didn't think it was. But, oh, I didn't get a shot of it. But it just went from X'd out to 1 bar on my hotspot. I didn't think this would boost a hotspot, but I guess it is. And if, okay, so I have 1 bar. You can see I have 1 bar. It's very small up in the corner. That was X'd out before. What I'll do is I'll bring it away to show you that. I'll bring it 3 feet away and you'll see it'll turn off. But let me try to connect to it now. And if I could get Wi-Fi right here. Okay, so it sees that I'm connected. You see that 1. So I just connected the phone. Now let's see if I can. No way, it just went to 3 bars. It was X'd out before. So there's the X when I'm not in proximity to the unit, and there's Coda chewing a stick. Well, in a few days, we're headed to the top of the world highway in Alaska, and we're gonna test this signal booster in the last frontier of Alaska and see how it does there. And I think that's gonna be a really good test for it. I'm already amazed at what it can do in Washington for my cell service. Overall, I love the WeBoost. There's really nothing quite like it on the market, and I think the answer for you, if you should consider the WeBoost as a purchase for your rig or for your off-grid setup, is how much you will use it and the value you'll get out of it. For me, I'm full-time in my rig, and it's something that I think any full-timer absolutely needs unless you truly want to stay disconnected, which to me is not a great feeling when you are, alone up here on a hill in your rig. I like to catch up with my family, talk to my parents, talk to my friends. So that's a big thing for me. Staying connected via Wi-Fi and stuff is great as well, but that's the main usage I've got about it. And I think you should consider the WeBoost as well if you're gonna have similar advantages. If you're just a weekend camper and you want service, you might be something to consider. Some people want to get away from that as well, so I get all that. Everything's a balance. I think this is a great thing to consider for your rig, and I'm gonna talk a lot more about it. Like I said, we're gonna test it in Alaska, and I'm gonna wrap that all up in a separate video for you. So thanks for tuning into this one. Be sure to hit that subscribe so you don't miss any of the adventures along the way. Drop a comment, let me know what you think of this, and make sure that you're following along on Instagram to stay up to date with everyday adventures. You already know, the question is, are you down to mob?